Tuning into Sci-Fi TV, the viewer's guide to genre television for the week of June 6th to June 12th, 2015.
How did this happen? Where did it go? It should have been there last week's episode. I thought I was set up with my season pass. Now the new show is out, and I don't know what happened last week. How did my TiVo forget?
Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Batchelder.
I'm Wendy Hembrock.
And I'm Brent Barrett.
Alrighty. A couple fun things to kick things off. First, we got a new poll up on the website, brand new. And on this one, we're asking you a little bit about the Netflix originals, whether or not you've checked them out, or even if you have Netflix, and if you are watching, kind of the way you watch. So we've got several answers available in here, and very early on in the voting, but the clear choice so far, with over 40% of the vote, is folks saying, yes, I have viewed one or more original, and I typically watch them in chunks rather than individually.
Though I think binge watching, the question is whether you complete it or you have to do it in chunks, because the second one is watching the whole thing within a week.
Yeah, this one was really added because I was curious about how people watch them. Do they watch them like I tend to do with the good ones, which is like in a week, within a week, watch everything? Or do they watch them more like Kevin does, one a week? Or do they watch them in bursts, which I hear a lot of people do in chunks? And also, folks, I have to apologize. This is probably the wordiest and most complex poll question I've ever written.
I did have to reread a couple of them.
There you go. I was going to say, I remember seeing these on tests. You're trying to trick me, aren't you?
You're like,
C. Vote for C.
No, only because they're trying to, all the different choices that are there. But it's a good one. I'm very curious to see what the listenership, once we get a good chunk of votes on it, because this is an interesting one. We touched on it.
Yeah, because I always hear, people don't have a lot of time. So I'm very curious how folks find the time for doing these big bursts or find the restraint to not do that.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Should be fun. All right, we also want to let you folks know, many of you have noticed, and obviously if you're listening to the podcast, it hasn't totally screwed you up, but we changed some of our RSS feeds that have to do with how the podcast is listed with iTunes, and also maybe if you're using one of the podcasting apps on your phone or tablet. Now, in theory, a lot of this stuff should have been transparent. I suspect only a small percentage of you were affected, but we do know that some of you did notice all of a sudden our episodes weren't showing up. But if you are having a bit of an odd thing appearing, just know that the simplest solution is to unsubscribe and resubscribe, be it in iTunes or whatever software you're using, and that should make the problem go away. And also, Brent was kind enough to set up another option on the website, because we used to have one that we kind of took away where you could be notified by email whenever we had episodes come out, or basically new blog posts. So that's back active on the site as well.
Yeah, and thanks everyone who contacted us. We're happy to hear that we were missed.
Yeah, and in case you're curious, we're not doing this just because we like to jerk your chain. There's potential for some better ways to distribute our podcasts, and that's why we're trying to set some things up. And in the process, of course, some people got affected, and we apologize for that.
Yeah, there is a master plan. So, yes, our goal was not to make your life harder. But like Wendy said, nice to know that those of you who said, hey, how come I haven't seen any content? So it's good to know you're paying attention. And then finally, as you've heard the last few weeks, we had our contest where we were given a season of Person of Interest away. Choice of seasons, choice of formats. And that contest just closed down, and we drew a winner. And congrats to Jason from Texas for winning on that one. You should have an email in your inbox if you haven't already checked.
Awesome.
Yay, I hope you enjoy it.
Yep, been enjoying my Person of Interest watch as I'm now watching it. So I'll be curious to find out if Jason's an existing fan, or maybe he's going to grab that season 1 too. All right, let's get ready to move over to our spoiler-free water cooler.
I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Annie.
And I'm Chris. We're the hosts of Because We're Dangerous, a podcast discussing Sci-Fi and Space Channel's new series, Dark Matter.
At the beginning of the series, 6 strangers awake to find themselves adrift in space with no memory of who they are or how they came to be there.
We discuss the episodes as they air, exploring the story arcs, characters, themes, and more. Find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and at AskGenreTV.com.
Subscribe so that you won't miss any episodes in the event of a space coma.
Alrighty, time to go through and give the shows that were on this past week our quick reviews. Potentially the watch it now, watch it soon, maybe let it sit, or completely skip it. Kicking off on Saturday, June the 6th, we have Orphan Black, Season 3, Episode number 8. Ruthless in purpose and insidious in method. I'd give it a high watch it soon.
I'd give it a regular watch it soon.
I agree with you, Kevin. High watch it soon.
All right, next up would be Sunday the 7th, Game of Thrones. Next to last episode of the season, Season 5, Episode number 9, The Dance of Dragons. I'd also give this one a high watch it soon.
I would give it a watch it now.
I love the last scenes, but I can only give it a high watch it soon.
Also Sunday is Penny Dreadful, Season 2, Episode number 6, Glorious Horrors. I could give this one only a low watch it soon.
I'd go high watch it soon.
I'll go right between you guys. Middle of the road, watch it soon.
All right, and our last Sunday show is going to be Salem, Season 2, Episode number 10, Till Death Do Us Part. Not one that I watch.
Strong watch it soon.
Got about 3 more episodes to watch till I'm caught up, but I probably will be by next time.
Cool.
All right, going to move to Monday, the 8th. We have The Whispers. First season, it's its second episode here, Hide and Seek. Afraid I just have too many other shows I enjoy, so I'm not watching this one anymore.
I am behind. I'm on the Saturday recording schedule of the show, apparently, so I haven't seen this yet.
Yeah, from a intriguing start to starting to lose me, I'd only give it a high and let it sit.
Ooh, okay. All right, let's jump to Tuesday, the 9th. We have the first season finale for iZombie. 13th episode of its first season, as I said. Blaine's World. Definite watch it now.
I go low watch it now.
I'm teetering between low watch it now and regular watch it now, but I think I'll just stick with my original rating and say low watch it now.
Alrighty. We also have the newer show on ABC Family, Stitchers. First season, second episode, Friends in Low Places. I'm still kind of digging this one. I'd say a solid watch it soon.
I would say low watch it soon, but it's going to be my last. I'm not going to watch this anymore.
Yeah, I'm finding it pretty entertaining. I'd say watch it soon as well.
All right, jumping to Thursday, the 11th. Beauty and the Beast is back. Third season, first episode, The Beast of Wall Street. Not one that I watch.
Low watch it soon.
You know, I normally watch this in the background, and I wanted to keep up for the podcast, but I turned it on in the background as I was doing some stuff this morning and realized that show is so boring for me, I don't even want to watch it in the background, so I'll watch it some other time.
It was a tough one to get through.
Also Thursday, we have Wayward Pines in here. It's getting to the middle of its first season, the 5th episode, entitled The Truth. I actually, for the first time, really got a kick out of this one, so I would give it a solid to upper watch it soon.
Yeah, I'd give it a solid watch it soon also.
Yeah, it was an intriguing episode. High-end watch it soon.
All right, now we're on to Friday, and we've got a couple of premieres in here. First, a new show, Dark Matter, Season 1, Episode number 1, simply titled Pilot, Part 1. Did a good job of sucking me in. I'd go borderline high watch it soon to low watch it now.
Yeah, I'd go strong watch it soon.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. High watch it soon.
And we also have Defiance back. It's third season. We got the first 2 episodes of the season. We got The World We Seize and also The Last Unicorns. I would give these very good. I would give these a watch it now and a low watch it now.
Yeah, I'd give them both a low watch it now.
I'm going to rate them together, and I did not expect the season premiere to punch me in the gut and do what this show did, so I'm going to give it a watch it now.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to talking about that one on the back porch this week. We also on Friday have The Messengers. Season 1, Episode number 9, Death Becomes Her. Not one I'm watching anymore.
I'm not watching this.
This is the highlight so far of the season for this. I'd say low-end watch it now.
Oh, that's a pleasant surprise.
Going out on a good note then.
Apparently.
Yeah, good. All right, and now we have a couple of shows that are available on streaming that we rate. First off is going to be Sense8. We're up to the second episode of its first season. I Am Also a We. And I like this one more than the first episode, so I'd probably give it a high watch it soon.
I haven't seen this.
I'd give it a watch it soon.
And also we have Daredevil. We're up to episode number 10, in our weekly installments anyway for me. Nelson versus Murdoch. Very good episode. High watch it soon.
I say low watch it now.
I'm going to go a little lower in both of you. Regular watch it soon.
And then finally, our watch/rewatch for the Almighty Johnsons. Season 3, episode number 2. This Thing Inside. I'd give it a middle-of-the-road watch it soon.
I'd say strong watch it soon.
Yeah, I agree. High-end watch it soon.
All right, up first in the Water Cooler this week, we have a couple of voicemails from listeners, which are great. First one we're going to play for you here is one from Scott on Cape Cod, talking a little bit about the Showtime and HBO now offering online subscriptions and apps.
I have to say I'm very skeptical that this is a boon for viewers. I don't see this as a great thing. As Brent said, if content evolves to entirely a la carte, I believe the cost will be much higher than cable is now. And cable, or something like it, would still be necessary to watch stuff like news and sports and the like. Regarding sports, I've got news for everybody. The NFL under this format will not be cheap. They've never met a nickel they didn't want to grab, and I don't think HBO and Showtime are doing this so they can charge people less. I watch a lot of different networks, and if they reach around $10 each, well, you do the math. I kind of like the current system. In the past, I think Brent has said that the cable bill isn't so bad if you consider how encompassing the content is and how much effort you'd expend contacting all the different providers you want to subscribe to and how little you'd save, if anything. Just seems like too much work and effort to me for a small gain, if any, really. So it seems like a slippery slope. Maybe somebody would make a package available, as Kevin suggested, if you pick 5 or more networks. But do you really think it would be that much cheaper? So, as Wendy would say, that's it from me.
Hey, thanks, Scott. That's interesting. I didn't think about sports because I'm not a person who watches any particular sports channels for live sports. I pretty much stick to the main networks for that stuff. But I'm thinking that it's not, I don't know that it's going to get that expensive. The one area where we might see a big drop in content, though, is possibly local channels and local news. If it turns out that those stations can't afford to compete. And maybe we'll get something kind of like, is it WGN? Or I think back in the day we used to have those networks that were regional. And maybe that's what we'll get, is sort of regional networks that maybe only have local news and weather as the only local content, and then everything else is network. I don't know. I'm going to be interested to see how this evolves, but I can't imagine it's going to get significantly more costly than what current cable is. And my current cable bill is very expensive. So I'm sure there's not just me and others trying to find ways to save money, but still find that sweet spot of content.
Hey, thanks, Scott. I'm right there with you. I totally agree. If they go with this model and continue with this model, I've got about 20 or 30 networks that I watch from time to time on cable, and if I had to pay $10 or $20 a month for each of those, I'd be bankrupt. And after about 4 of them, I'd equal my satellite bill already. Something's going to have to change. I think the only thing that would work would be what we talked about last week, which is you get a menu and you can pick and choose from them, and if you can pick 10 or you can pick 20 for a set price, and that might work. But this onesie twosies things where each one is worth $10 by itself, unless you are very limited in what you watch on TV and you only watch one network, like those parody snobs who would say I only watch PBS, those guys, then you're going to be out of luck.
Yeah, and I think we've said in some of our discussions so far, I keep thinking of it, it's still, this is the Wild West of TV over internet, so to speak, much like it was when cable first came out, late 70s, early 80s. So, pricing model, no, not going to work here. But again, these are 2 of the pay cable channels that charge approximately this much, maybe a little less, when you add them to your cable bill before the days of nice bundles and stuff. So, I think we're still way early. We're going to have more of those basic cable channels, and like Wendy alluded to, the over-the-air for the local networks. I know several of those local channels now have created apps, or shall we say a channel like on the Roku. So if you're a cable cutter, you can still get your local ABC affiliates news at 6 and 11 and so forth. So things are still evolving. It's kind of interesting. I do think it will be a boon, though, for a lot of us who do want to pick and choose, but it's not like it's going to happen this year or next year, or maybe even in a couple years. But it was fascinating. I was recently watching a show that's on CNN called The 70s. They did one a couple of years back called The 60s, where it's like a 4 or 8-part series, and they look at different things. But the one I just saw was on television, and they had a couple bits talking about this whole new thing called cable. In the late 70s when it was first there, and the idea of people paying to watch TV. Had some pundits just laughing that it would never happen and all these other things. So again, we all know, eventually business settles and they find a way to make money at this stuff. So it's going to be exciting.
Well, the other thing, though, is, I mean, despite the hundreds of channels that come with your cable subscription, I question how many channels folks regularly watch, because when I look in my TiVo list, I probably only have maybe 15 channels that I regularly watch.
Yeah, I got more than that.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen surveys, too, done, and I think we even mentioned one or two that looked at that, of all the channels you have, how many do you watch? And then that starts that whole debate of basic cable and the idea that certain channels subsidize others. You wouldn't get your specialty channel if you had to pay for it independently. So, yeah, we're kind of getting into a big business side of where it's going to go, because we all know we'd love to just pick and choose the ones we want. So it's going to evolve. I just know that for some parts of it, it'll probably look very enticing. In other parts, like right now, it's like, oh God, you'd have to be made of money to do it that way.
So how fast will we be paying for stuff we currently watch on YouTube for free?
Oh, that might be coming. I mean, YouTube's always looking for ways to monetize. Let's face it.
They're doing a pay
I
model.
know.
They've already announced the pay model.
Yeah, and Vimeo and some of
Yeah.
those other ones are doing that now, where you can, pay a certain monthly fee, do away with ads, or get a certain amount of videos and so forth. So yeah, they're all trying them. All right, switching away from maybe the business side of things a little bit, we've got another voicemail this time from Stephanie from Drinks at the Doll with some non-spoilery thoughts about Sense8.
To use your ratings, for me, it was a watch it soon, but I think for a lot of people, it will be a let it sit or even a skip it. It's a very character-driven show. It is often punctuated by action scenes, but you don't really see a hint of the major storyline until about a third of the way into the season. Also, speaking of plot problems, watch out for the pothole in the finale. You are liable to hurt yourself were you to fall into it. But the slowness of the story arc doesn't really bother me, because the show really shines, to me, when we see the different storylines of the Sense8s intersect. They work the same way for me as the multiple clone scenes in Orphan Black often do. They are very cinematically impressive, but they also tend to be very emotionally satisfying as well, because we get to see how these very different characters can relate to each other. And it's a gorgeous show. The Wachowskis can always be counted on for something interesting to look at. For sure, it's also one of the most diverse TV shows I've seen, which is something I do look for in television shows. But I think there are discussions to be had about stereotypes that they're using here. I will say I think the show could have easily been Sense6. There are a lot of characters, and not everyone gets as fully fleshed out of storylines as other characters do. But overall, I did really enjoy it. I think there's some very charismatic and talented actors. And like I said, the crossing of storylines is really impressive and unique. I haven't seen anything quite like it before. And as to your discussion of the new Netflix model in your recent Tutor Minutes segment, I do think Sense8 benefits from the ability to binge watch as many episodes as you would like. I gotta say, the first episode is very long and it drags quite a bit in the middle. I think it's about an hour and 6 minutes. It's a very long first episode, but the ability to immediately click play on the next one without having to wait a week propelled me forward into the meatier parts of the series that I did really enjoy.
Hey, thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, on the Netflix model, I said last week that I was going to be watching this show once a week. I think I mentioned that. I gave up on that. I watched the first episode, like you said, it was kind of draggy, and I watched it and said, okay, I can just watch one a week. I'll watch the second episode, and I'm like, okay, I got to watch the next one. Then I got to watch the next one. Then I got to watch the next one. And I just watched all the way through. So I have seen the whole thing as well, and I can kind of relate to this, a lot of the things you're saying. I don't think I analyzed the finale as well as you, because when you talk about a big plot hole, it's not coming to me. I'll have to rewatch it and figure out what you're talking about, because I just really enjoyed the ride in that final episode. It was very exciting to me, and I was really engrossed and drawn into the story and the adventure that was going on there. You talked about the Sense6. I would argue for a Sense4 or maybe even a Sense2. There's kind of two leads, really, as far as I'm concerned, in this thing, but possibly 4. But I get what you're saying. There were a couple of characters that were kind of unused, or at least used lightly, and maybe they'll be used a little more heavily in the upcoming season should it be renewed.
Yeah, thanks. That was an excellent detailed thoughts. I liked hearing that, and it's stirred some good conversation. Brent talked about what he just shared with us here on the crew in terms of getting sucked into it, and I had a couple of other friends talking the same way online about how they were iffy, but then all of a sudden they found themselves, just couldn't stop watching them. So it's going to be interesting. I plan to stick with one a week. but maybe I'll find myself getting pulled into that. But yeah, the number of the Sense 8 or 6 or 4 or 2, I had other people say the same thing. So I think many of us are going to be on that same train.
Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate the comments. Actually, your comments and my busy schedule have led me to decide I'm going to pass on this show for a while and get back to it sometime later.
Be interesting to hear when you do, whether you binge it or you stick to just kind of filling it in from time to time.
Well, my interest will greatly depend on whether I make it past episode 3, I think, from what I'm hearing. I mean, I'm all for character. I definitely like character-driven story, but I do like it driving the story versus just having people sit around and talk.
That happens more. Unfortunately for you, the more the series progresses, the more it leans towards story and less from characters. But the earlier ones are just very character-heavy.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to work for me.
We'll have to see. All right, moving into some news items. I got our first one this week, a new show coming. We don't have a specific network, but for those who might be the type who are reading some comics or graphic novels, we have Reincarnate being developed right now. We don't have it assigned to a network or anything yet, but going to be interesting to see how it comes forward. Now, this particular story, real quickly, a couple sentences here for you folks so you know what we're looking at from a genre point of view, is that it focuses on a down-on-his-luck private eye, and after being shot during an investigation, he gains the ability to interact with versions of himself from past lives. A Wild West lawman, a contract killer, and so forth. So he's going to have some skill sets there that come into play in the story. So interesting to see. We've had some things somewhat like that, but again, it's always how they spin it and do their own take on the story as to whether or not it's something we might want.
Yeah, I've not heard of this comic or this story, so I'll keep it in the back of the storage, memory storage for now. Hopefully, we'll find out that somebody has interest to pick it up.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'm kind of surprised that, I guess if you're really into this story, it makes sense to announce that they're trying to adapt it to TV and sell it around, but without even knowing if it's going to be sold or where it's going to appear, I'm just kind of nodding my head and just putting it in the back of the old brain.
Yeah, and if this does sound, the premise sounds interesting, they did announce, too, they're going to be re-releasing the original trade paperback, because this is from several years ago. So if you are the type who maybe wants to see what the story is like, you should have easy access, at your local comic store or Amazon and such to grab the trade paperback, knowing it's still a ways from reaching TV. All right, well, speaking of things that are already on TV, we do have some announcements regarding some premiere dates. Wendy's going to let us in on that.
Yeah, a couple networks, ABC and CBS, have announced their return dates for their fall schedules. ABC's fall schedule is going to start the week of September 11th, but the genre shows that we all follow regularly, Once Upon a Time and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., are coming back the week of September 21st. And so Once Upon a Time comes back on the 27th of September, and S.H.I.E.L.D. stays on its Tuesday night slot on the 29th, still at 9 o'clock. And CBS has announced its schedule. It's shifting things a little bit. Its fall schedule starts October 26th, and Supergirl, which is the one that's definitely on my radar, is going to premiere on Monday night, following a lead-in by The Big Bang Theory. And then the week of November 2nd, it stays in its normal Monday night at 8 o'clock slot. And also later in that week, on Thursday, November 5th, is the premiere of the comedy Angel from Hell, which is a comedy about an angel starring Jane Lynch. And not a genre show, but one I know a lot of our listeners watch, and I enjoy. Elementary returns.
Yeah, some good stuff in here, but I think you missed the lead. You buried the lead here, and that is that on September 22nd on ABC, we get the Muppets, Wendy.
Oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. Yes. I am definitely looking forward to the Muppets. There's also a show that I don't think we've talked about too much, because I'm not entirely sure if it's genre or not, called Limitless. It's the one about the guy who takes some kind of mysterious drug and he gets sort of newfound abilities because of the drug. Have we talked about this show? It's going to be on Tuesdays. Starts on September 22nd.
If we have, it's not stuck with me.
Yeah, it surprised me when I saw it in the list, and the actor who's playing the lead didn't jump out at me either. Jake McDorman.
Is this the one that was based off of the Lucy movie with Scarlett Johansson?
It says it's based off a movie that starred Bradley Cooper.
Okay, then never mind. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I know which one that was. Interesting. Okay, yeah, that's been under the radar for me, but that definitely does sound like it has some genre hooks.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's great to see the networks, at least a couple of them, already giving us some dates. Obviously, sooner is better than later, so it's nice that at least S.H.I.E.L.D. Once Upon a Time is late September. The Supergirl one, that's late October, so that's a bit later than, some of us might like, but again, we'll have to wait to see. So it's nice there. Obviously, we'll keep an eye for, we have many of our shows on the CW, so that's another big one to look for along with NBC's. But these are all up on the tuner calendar, folks, so if you want to start looking ahead or as they fill in, by all means, we'll have them up there for you. All right, our next item is going to throw it over to Brent to hear something that SciFi is developing.
Yeah, speaking of Bradley Cooper, the actor and producer, now is going to be executive producing along with Graham King and Todd Phillips, who have some credits behind them as well with The Departed and The Hangover, a novel called Hyperion. It's apparently a Hugo Award-winning novel by Dan Simmons, into an event series. One of those. This is what event series means these days, folks, which is we're going to do a 6, 8, 10 episode series and tell you that it's a mini series and it's going to have a start, middle, and end. But if you watch it, we're going to renew it, and then nobody's going to watch it. It'll be canceled in the second season. But anyway, the Hyperion is basically a story. Here's a little summary. On the eve of Armageddon, with the entire galaxy at war, Hyperion is the story of 7 pilgrims who set forth on a voyage to seek the answers to the unsolved riddles of their lives. And each of them, of course, carries a desperate hope and a terrible secret. It sounds like it might be space-based since it talks about the entire galaxy. So we got that looking, on the horizon. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, this is a novel I know I've heard from some friends who are more of the bookies, who enjoy their sci-fi there. So very high-profile names involved and the story. And I very much appreciate your description, Brent. Yes, it is really the... I don't want to call it the bait and switch, but we're going to cover our butts by telling you this is all you're going to get. But oh my goodness, if enough of you watch it, well, we'd be foolish not to find a way to bring it back. So I guess we'll have to wait to see.
This is interesting because it's based on just one novel, which is unusual. A lot of times they go for sci-fi series of novels to prove that they've got content. So I hear you, Brent, and my reaction is the same. Hopefully it's not too many episodes. Maybe they'll control themselves with 6 or 8 and not go for 10 or 13. Because then I do agree they probably told us all the story they've got and everything else is going to be mush.
Alrighty, well, moving back to some of our shows that are already on the air, I'm going to share some casting news. Got 3 different items, folks, so giving you a moment here if you'd like to skip ahead. Some info on Once Upon a Time, Daredevil, and The Flash, in case you don't want to know anything there. You have been warned for a few minutes. First up on the Once Upon a Time side, the casting really relates to a couple of characters you've already seen that have been now moved to official series regulars. That would be Rebecca Madar and Sean Maguire, playing the Wicked Witch and Robin Hood, are now going to be not only sticking around, but being around much more. So Once Upon a Time, folks, be aware of that. Also on the Daredevil side, a big name has been announced to be playing in Season 2, a well-known character, the Punisher. And that is an actor from The Walking Dead, John Barenthal, is coming in to play that character. So that was a pretty high-profile announcement. And finally, from a casting point of view, we don't have a name, but a certain type of character that's coming to The Flash. And I suspect Brent will have strong opinions about, and that's the fact that they're lining up a new love interest for Barry in Season 2, basically calling it, quote, his own Felicity. So we're going to have to wait to see a lot more on that one, but that certainly raised more than 1 or 2 eyebrows.
Well, that had me rolling my eyes because he had a Felicity before, and I find it kind of offensive that they think that love interests are cookie cutter and they're just going to stamp out another Felicity. Love the John Barenthal casting for the Punisher. I'm really looking forward to that, though. And Once Upon a Time, I'm okay with those characters getting more prominence in the story, so that's okay.
Yeah, I kind of rolled my eyes at the Flash thing too, so I'm not going to talk about it, Kevin. I'm going to instead focus on what I really love, which is Marvel Comics. And I was very excited to hear that, and I was hoping for it. I think on this show I even mentioned at some point that I wanted, after watching the first season of Netflix's Daredevil, I couldn't wait for, I was talking about things like Spider-Man, which never happened, but I was saying that we might see the Punisher. And sure enough, they've decided to bring him into this world. And Punisher is a really cool character, very dark character, but very cool in a lot of ways, in that, total absence of regret about killing bad people. He will punish, and by punish usually means kill, in the most gruesome way, people who deserve it. And of course he punishes himself if he ends up accidentally killing somebody who doesn't deserve it. But he's just a great character. And I was telling Kevin about, if you aren't familiar with Punisher and you don't want to read comics, at least watch the 2008 film Punisher Warzone. In my opinion, the best Punisher movie ever made, best Punisher live action ever done. Very good movie. It really gives you a glimpse of the character that I love, the comic character that I love, and I hope that they can do that character justice. And I also hope that if they do it justice, it leads to another Netflix series for the Punisher, which would be awesome.
Yeah, I know a lot of folks are very much excited by that, so it was good to see. I don't have the attachment to it, but I obviously understand and look forward to it. And as Brent said, I set up a recording for that film myself, having not seen it originally, to hopefully take a look at it before we get the next season. So I've got a better understanding of what might be coming.
Yeah, I have not heard of that movie, but once I saw that Ray Stevenson was in it, it definitely went to my list to watch, because it's a character with some interesting possibilities, and I would love it if it turns out that it becomes a really interesting character in Daredevil that they would spin off, because John Barenthal's definitely an actor who can carry a series.
Yeah, in the contrast, Daredevil is a superhero who doesn't want to kill people and doesn't like doing that and doesn't kill people, just, basically brings them to justice, beats them up and brings them to justice. Whereas the Punisher, he doesn't bother. There's a bad person, he just pulls out a gun and shoots you in the head. I mean, he's done. But
you're not implying he wants to kill people. He's just willing to do it and isn't feeling guilty about having to do it. No, the
Punisher wants to kill people who deserve to be punished. It's a driving desire.
Okay, but he isn't seeking out people to kill.
Yes, he is.
He? Oh, okay. So a very dark anti-hero character.
Looking forward to it. All right, coming up here, as many of you know, Sci-Fi Fridays is getting to be a big thing now with Sci-Fi, at the Dark Matter premiere and Defiance, and also the new one, Killjoys. So we've got a set of featurettes we're going to touch on for those of you who want to learn a little more. First off, Wendy's going to talk about a Dark Matter one.
Yeah, the Dark Matter featurette is it's about 3 minutes long, and it intersperses segments from the first episode, as well as commentary from the showrunners, as well as the actors. So it's a lot of fun. Get to hear the actors talk about their characters and why they were interested in their parts. If you've seen the first episode, then you will have no spoilers whatsoever. And I don't think it's very spoilery, even if you haven't. It just explains the setup of the show, so it's a pretty worthwhile little feature.
Yeah, I watched this one prior to watching the premiere, and I thought it added to the premiere. I think my enjoyment level of the premiere went up a little bit from having watched this. I don't know if it will help after the fact or if it does anything after the fact, but it definitely has a lot of information that is helpful in understanding how this story came about, the history behind it, and the characters on the show. So it's worth watching.
Yeah, I gave it a watch, enjoyed it. Also, I got a chance to be on a Sci-Fi Channel Dark Matter press call with some of the actors and the showrunner. We'll talk more about that later. But again, it's more the, as you said, filling in the universe a bit. So I felt a little more comfortable, hitting the ground running kind of idea by having this featurette, which a lot more shows are realizing that. So it's a great way to prep you for Ep 1. All right, next up, we're going to let Brent talk about a Defiance one.
Yeah, it's another one of these sci-fi featurettes. So it's about 3 minutes long with some interviews with cast and crew. And this one's not terribly spoilery, but it does talk to you about, it gives you an introduction to the new season and kind of sets the stage for what's happening in the new season. A few hints about what's to come in this season as well. And if you could tell from our quick reviews, this show started out with a bang. And if you haven't seen this featurette, I happened to see it before I saw Defiance. And again, I don't know that it added to Defiance, but definitely didn't detract from it or lessen my excitement. I was very excited by the premiere. I think you should go back and watch it because it is interesting to hear the cast and crew talk about how they're approaching this season.
Yes, I enjoyed it very much. There's things are definitely ratcheted up here without being spoilery this season, and a lot more is going on, maybe, at least in my mind. So, again, this was one of those fill in a lot more understanding of what I've got coming.
Yeah, it was a good featurette. I didn't see it before I watched the premiere, but it definitely paired well with what we saw in those first 2 episodes.
And the other featurette was for Killjoys, which is the one that hasn't premiered yet, coming out shortly after this podcast probably does. It'll be Friday the 19th. Yeah, I enjoyed this one, a little shorter than the other 2. It's only a little over 2 minutes long for this one. But same idea. You got little tidbits from the actors, a little bit from the showrunner, some visuals and understanding of the universe. And when I say universe, I don't just mean the show's universe, but the universe, since it's space-based, that part of this out in space is taking place in. So this was good. I've been kind of holding off on Killjoys, but, this one got assigned to me here in the news, so I took a look and went, oh, that actually helped. I feel a little more interested in what we've got coming.
Yeah, this does have me still interested in the show, and as you both mentioned, it's kind of nice to look forward to with SciFi Channel with a Friday lineup of 3 shows I really want to watch.
Yeah, I got to say up front, I am very excited to have actual space-based shows coming back to Sci-Fi, but this one I don't know how to feel, because I watch the featurettes and I watch the trailers, and I'm thinking Z Nation level campiness and low budget, but it may not be. It may be better, but I can't really tell from this, and I'm not getting a solid vibe from this show, and this featurette didn't really help in that regard. I'm definitely going to check it out, but I don't know what to expect going in, and at this point I was hoping I would.
Yeah, I think it's a case of having to see what we get on that first 42 minutes.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's got like a Warehouse 13 budget. So sometimes the special effects will be good and sometimes they won't.
Yeah, time's going to tell. All right, our next item Wendy's going to fill us in on is creator Dan Harmon talking about Community a bit. Yeah,
Community just wrapped up season 6, and Dan Harmon talks a little bit about what could possibly happen. He said that actually Yahoo wants him to start pitching and could have started filming if they had something to do. But nothing's been set yet. To me, it sounds like we're going to get a movie. And hopefully they'll bring together a story and line up the actors pretty quickly because they're all in demand. And hopefully we won't have to wait, 5 years before we can get their schedules to align. But based on my interpretation of what he said, I don't assume there will be a season 7. But I am hoping that there will be a movie.
Yeah, and you know what? It kind of makes sense that Dan Harmon should go this route because, as you said, the actors are all in demand. Some of them have already left the show and they weren't here for the 6th season. To get them back, all of them back for a movie would be possible. Even maybe Chevy Chase would be possible for a movie. And think about it. If he does that, he's got such a meta thing going with Community because in the early season of Community, I think maybe even in the first season, Abed talked about 6 seasons in a movie for this, sitcom that he thinks his life is, which is Community. So, that would be an incredible get for Dan Harmon to do that and say, here it is, here's my show. We were so clever in the beginning that we predicted 6 seasons in a movie, and that's what we gave you.
Yeah, the universe's way of aligning, huh? Yeah, I've loved this show so much. I think I would just get a kick out of it doing exactly that. So while part of me wants to say, yeah, I'll pitch some great ideas for a full season, another part of me just wants to say, let's put a cherry on top of what's been wonderful and just go out with some fun on a movie kind of thing. So I'm kind of hoping they go that way instead of a full season.
Yeah, I totally love the idea that they get exactly the hashtag that they started.
All right, next up, we're going to let Brent talk a little bit about Wayward Pines.
Yeah, this is a show that I was pleasantly surprised when I read this because, first of all, I just assumed I guess I had brain freeze or something, assumed that Wayward Pines was a regular old-fashioned series that was going to be renewed or possibly renewed for another season and so forth. But it turns out, no, the showrunners really did intend this to be a 10-episode, and I know I just previously talked about how the network set us up for this sort of thing, where they call it a limited run, beginning, middle, end sort of show, and then they want to renew it if people are watching. But this one seems, the showrunner seemed more serious about this is a beginning, middle, end, 10-episode story. They're throwing all 3 books from the trilogy that this was based on into these 10 episodes. So there's not a lot of content after that, but they did talk about the fact that at the end, they do give you a good ending, but they also kind of let you know what could happen if they went forward. So, there is a potential for that. But I thought that there were some, they're promising some pretty awesome things to come. I enjoyed the episode 5, which is the middle of this run, but I'm a little nervous personally about where they can go from here. Now that I know it's a 10-episode beginning, middle, end, I think I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah, and this was one, and I've touched on it so far, talking about the previous episodes, that I was only kind of in because a friend had seen the first 5 and said, no, just wait for the 5th count, then you'll know if it's going to be a show for you. And this thing was, I thought, too slow, but the 5th episode did have some cool stuff. And yes, as Brent said, this is okay, we can go in a nice direction from here for the final 5, or we can go back to the meandering and angst and relationship, concerns. So we'll have to see. I'm probably, as you said, halfway through, and since they designed it as only 10, probably going to stay there. There's just a lot of other great shows starting this week and the next couple of weeks, so I'm not sure I'll stay current, but I do want to watch all of it, unless they totally derail.
Yeah, after the last couple episodes, this definitely ticked up higher in my list to make sure that I stay current with, and especially after episode 5, now I do want to see how they unroll this story. I was very surprised when I read this article, though, when the showrunner said that they had taken all the story from the 3 books and were covering it here. That definitely made me a little concerned when he said, well, we left a door open for a future story, but it isn't based on any books. Though it sounds like the showrunners have talked a lot with the author, so maybe they've cooked up a good idea amongst them or something. But definitely going to watch all 10, and then we'll see what they leave as the next, if I might come back for more.
Alrighty, and speaking of talking to showrunners, I've got a link for you folks for those of you that are interested in iZombie. Season finale just occurred, and again, we can't talk about too much naturally here at this point in the show, but there is an interview with Rob Thomas, showrunner, and talking about things that happened in the finale, as well as some things that are going to be coming in Season 2, which starts up in the fall. So there's definitely some stuff in there that some folks who are very sensitive to spoilers won't want to know, some directions, characters who might be key components and stuff. And there's also some discussion of some of the big things that happened. So I, really have fallen in love with this show, really enjoyed it. I dived into it. Yeah, maybe it was a little more than I might have wanted to know, but totally in a good way that got me excited for it. So there's some good stuff here. If you're a big fan, I suspect you'll want to dive into it all.
Yeah, just don't read it if you haven't seen the finale already. The one thing that I was very interested about this interview was when he talked about the plan for the major character storyline and his discussions with the actor about what was going to happen, as what happens in the finale is one of the key things that got him interested to play the character. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, this is one I haven't read, but I'm very excited to read it after we're done talking here.
Alrighty, and our final item that Wendy's going to talk about is a bit of a weather forecast?
Oh, hell no, Kevin. If folks, maybe while they were watching Defiance or any of the other sci-fi shows, probably caught the preview for Sharknado 3. But if not, you can see it if you follow the link in the show notes. The interesting part is a lot of the actors that are piling on for the show. It's almost like the B-list all wants to be in a version of Sharknado. So David Hasselhoff is in, Frankie Muniz is in, as well as the 2 hosts of some part of the Today Show, Kathy Lee Gifford and Hoda Korb are in it. Penn and Teller is in it. It's just going to be a who's who of who's getting eaten by sharks in Sharknado 3, which is going to premiere on Wednesday, July 22nd. So set your DVR.
I'm really confused by the title. Maybe you guys can help me. Sharknado 3. Does that mean there were a couple of Sharknado movies before this that I missed somehow?
You might have to come out from under that rock if you weren't aware of those, yes. Obviously, I've been keeping a close eye on this thing for months. And yeah, the names, as they add them in, it's just nice to finally have a trailer that's showing a lot of them. They had a lot of fun with the previous trailer that had the Hoff and what he would be doing there. I mean, for those of you who have a slight interest in B movies, aside from all the cameos, it's also nice in this one that they're bringing back from the first one, Casey Sherbo. Very easy on the eyes, but she played a key role in the first film and wasn't in the second. And aside from being easy on the eyes, I thought she kind of fit a good part of it. So it's good to have her back with the gang, too. So aside from a ton of what will be cameos and, as you said, kills, I'm hoping we got some of the same core folks that are going to have to somehow save the day again. And as well on that, for those who might be fans for the B movies, the SciFi that week is going to be doing 6 other original premieres, lots of sharks and other creatures too. So Sharknado will just be the cornerstone in the middle there for you. All right, to finish us out, water cooler wise, we have a Tuna Minute. This is one that I recorded, and it's entitled, Let Me See That Again. This week's Tuna Minute idea comes to us courtesy of our listener Ronnie in Vegas. We're going to talk about the ability nowadays to be able to either pause or maybe rewind the show that you're watching. Maybe it's on a DVR, if you have that functionality on demand maybe, or who knows if it's streaming Netflix or somewhere online. As we know, a lot of showrunners now, something will fly by quickly on the screen. Could be a driver's license, a piece of paper, a written phone message, something that only appears for a second or two, but you find yourself wanting to go back and look at it again in case it's something important for the plot. Certainly the show Lost was something that a lot of us did this on years ago, but do you find yourself still doing that quite a bit as you watch shows, maybe only certain ones that have a big mythos? Or has it just become second nature for any small detail that you want to make sure you catch?
Hey, thanks, Ronnie, for the inspiration for that Tuner Minute. That's interesting. The show that originally came to my mind was Supernatural, because Supernatural, it's not necessarily that they're necessary background pieces of information, but they do such a great job with a lot of props and sets in their show that I often want to go back and take in sort of every bit of detail around. And there's one episode in particular called The Monster at the End of This Book that I think is in season 4, where they learn about these novels called Supernatural. Also, Game of Thrones, I definitely stop to see what's around for characters. Whenever a show, zooms in on a piece of paper or something that someone's reading, I'll often go back and look at it just to double check whatever I saw. Continuum and Penny Dreadful are the 2 other ones I could think of where I'll tend to go back and make sure I noticed all the details that you might miss if you don't do that.
Yeah, it is an interesting question because, in the old days, they would sometimes, have characters reading things or something of that nature. And they would always tend to either spend a very long time on it so they were sure you read it, or they would have the characters actually talk about what was in the written thing in the dialogue so that you were sure that you got it. You didn't have to lose part of the story if you weren't paying attention at that exact moment. TV, there's still a lot of TV shows that do it the old-fashioned way, a little extended amount of time where they talk about it so that you don't miss it. But there are some who don't, who just show you something, and some of them show it to you for a little longer than you would think period of time. But there are some who just show it briefly and then move on. I'm thinking of Grimm does that a lot. And I find myself stopping and rewinding and watching. I think iZombie's done that with some text messages and things of that nature before. There are more and more shows doing it because they know you can do that either on your DVR or on demand or on DVD or Blu-ray. They know you can do it. One interesting thing, a variant of this that I find myself doing a lot, and it's probably because, I don't want to admit it, it's probably because I'm getting old. I find myself rewinding and turning on the closed captioning on Netflix shows or on my DVR sometimes when I just cannot figure out what somebody is saying. And especially if I know it's an important thing and it's probably my age or it's the actors just mumbling, but I can't figure out what they're saying. So I'll turn on the closed captioning and play that bit and figure out what they're saying, and then I'll turn it back off. So I do that a lot.
Oh, that's funny, Brent, because yes, I have used closed captioning more in the last couple months than I think I ever did in my life, and I was blaming my failing hearing when you're right. It's probably just the actors and some of the quick-moving scenes that I don't want to, it's that same idea, though, as far as pausing. You don't want to miss what was a good part. And now that we have so much technology at our fingertips, even for things that aren't, dropping big mythos like a Lost or some other shows, I'm very much sometimes afraid that I did miss something good. So I do tend to use it probably more than I need to, but it's, as Ronnie kind of said, it's become an instinct in some cases. I caught one on a rewatch of a Lost Girl episode, the early season 1 episode that I think I'm losing track of which one it was, but it was the one where Kenzie went undercover in a sorority. Obviously, Lost Girl is not one where you normally need to freeze frame or pull some things out. The stories aren't that deep. However, she had a student ID, and I caught myself wanting to look at it, and knowing that the showrunners were fans of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, her name on the ID was Kenzie Summersby, much like Buffy Summers. So there's some little nuggets like that you just stumble in, and I think that's for many of us geeks, it's that discovery moment.
Yeah, sometimes the actors, it might not even be that they mumble, but they might be saying things so quickly that I'll want to go back and make sure I heard every word clearly.
Kevin, you can't fool me or our listeners. We know that you've stopped and paused and rewound and paused images in Lost Girl that had nothing to do with something written on a screen.
I'm sure no one was actually speaking during a lot of those.
Yeah. Somebody might have been in a angel outfit at some point.
Moving on to the next topic at hand. I got to plead the fifth, otherwise I get myself in trouble there. All right. Well, we're curious. Again, a great idea. We always appreciate when listeners give us idea for tuner minutes. But if you folks have some thoughts on that topic or other ones, by all means, reach out to us. Voicemail, email, forums, social media. We'd love to hear from you on those, folks. So please take some time and do that. It makes the show that much richer here. So at this point, though, I think that wraps us up here. Let's get ready to move over to some spoiler-filled discussions in detail about several episodes over in our back porch.
Today we talk about iZombie and Defiance.
Alrighty, first up in our back porch this week, we're going to talk about the iZombie finale, Blaine's World, and we're going to let Wendy start us off.
So the finale picks up right where we ended in the last episode. We're still trying to solve the murder of the Asshat Band. Not going to lie, that didn't really interest me all that much as they were trying to figure out who done it. Turns out it was Cameron, one of the people in the band. And, Liz's zombified guy wasn't quite as killerish as we had originally maybe thought. The more interesting part for me, certainly the more tense part, was Major being captured by Blaine, who's trying, all he wants to do is get back his astronaut brains, and inadvertently luring Liv's brother into things further. Because he comes back to actually, I think, start his job at the time when the meet cute gets blown up by Major. Things are looking pretty bad. I'm also not going to lie, they had some plot things that didn't entirely make sense. I don't know why Blaine just didn't kill Major and eat his brain to get the location out of his memories, but maybe it's not that simple. But I was very much expecting him to turn Major into a zombie. Was not expecting it to be Liv, and when she did that, I gotta say, I was really kind of upset with her for doing that, although it did look like he was going to bleed out after Blaine gutted him. Loved the part where Major escapes, then goes to his car and returns and goes all taxi driver and takes everyone out, tries to take Blaine out, but Liv arrives in time to save him. And the other part that I thought was really weak was the quote trade, when Liv doesn't bother to check that Major can speak or that it even is Major. That I thought was weak writing. But anyway, so she had to get to the meet cute. Loved the twist that she decides to use the only 2 doses of the cure that Ravi has given her, which are untested. We don't really know what the side effects might be. But first she shoves one into Blaine, who points out that, he's the boy holding back the dam of zombies by being the brain supplier for the town. He's the only one who knows how many zombies there are. And if they don't have a reliable supply of brains, they're just going to start killing everybody. So full-on apocalypse will be coming, which I thought were actually pretty interesting and valid points. But she, doesn't pan out. We also have to me, a surprise that the detective, or I guess he's the chief of police, covers up all the murders by Major and also kills himself, somewhat implicating that he's a hero, but mainly to cover everything up. Definitely going to be some fallout to that based on Clive's reaction to what he found and realizing that he recognizes the sneakers of the one henchman who killed the shelter kid. So that story is going to continue. And then at the very end, we get Major calling Liv out pretty harsh for what she did. She didn't help him by turning him into a zombie. He didn't want to be a zombie. And then in her guilt, she injects him with the second cure, which is also a selfish act because she has no idea what it's going to do to him. And it doesn't undo any of the stuff. After he gets told the awful truth that Liv is a zombie by Blaine. So probably like the last 20 minutes of the episode almost had too much stuff going on, but enjoyed most of it. I gotta say, the very end with the thing with the brother needing a blood transfusion was just kind of too much. We'd already had a ton of plot. It felt like overkill to me, especially for a character I don't really care about, because I think we've seen him like 4 times this season. But, Liv is basically getting squeezed from every direction between Blaine, Major, and now her family going into season 2.
Yeah, to me, one thing you didn't mention was I was really pleased and excited to see Brian Markinson, who plays Dylan on Continuum in this show. I mean, Continuum, they finished filming that series, so he no longer has a job. I was very pleased to see him appear in iZombie as a scientist, working for the drink manufacturer, or whatever they are, who are apparently behind all of the zombie outbreaks and the zombieism. And I love the scene, where Liv comes to visit with her detective partner. And the head of the company tells Brian Markinson's character, that one of a zombie's coming in. She's a zombie, and his reaction is he's staring at her, and her reaction back to him was just hilarious stuff when she caught him just staring at her and leering at her. To the things you were talked about with Major and with Blaine, I don't know. Liv did what I expected her to do when the love of her life is dying. I expected her to try absolutely everything to save him when medical science would not allow her to save him. The only thing left was to scratch him, and she did that. So it didn't come as a surprise. His reaction didn't come as a surprise. The injection of the final dose, I'm not sure she did. That was smart on her part. Now, in her mind, I think she's thinking either it works and he becomes human again, in which case, what I did to him, essentially violating him by making him a zombie against his will, is undone because he's a human again, or it's going to fail and he's going to die, which is what would have happened if I hadn't made him into a zombie anyway. I don't want either of those. I don't want him to die, but it's worth the chance at this point because he's so miserable and hates me for what I did. I can understand why she did that, but there is a very good chance that there are some other side effects like you talked about, and maybe even that he will die. So, I don't know, but that's the same reason it was good that she gave the first injection to Blaine, because to my mind, either he's going to be a human, which makes him very vulnerable with his clientele and with the people he turned into zombies, if they find out, or he could die, which is a great outcome for her either way. Although, of course, he did make a good point, as you said, about how he was kind of, holding back the floodwaters of the zombies. But, there's other things that can be done, I imagine. But it's going to be a very interesting season 2. The police chief killing himself, didn't see that coming, but I have to admit, even to this day, I still don't understand what his motivation was, other than maybe him thinking that since there was an explosion there and all the other zombies were dead, he just kind of figured that his supply of brains would diminish, and that he would become, a rabid zombie. So he figured there's no sense in hanging around anymore. He didn't want to do that, possibly, I guess. But they didn't really make that clear to me. And Liv's brother was kind of emotional in a way, but also kind of a frustrating scene at the end. When the mother really wants her to donate her blood, and she obviously can't. And I don't know if it was a case of, if I donate my blood, he's going to become a zombie, and I don't want to make another zombie, and especially my brother, but I don't want him to die. So it was a very interesting place to end the season. So season 2 is going to be pretty different, I imagine. I don't know how they can continue the exact same mix of characters and story here. Something is definitely going to change.
Yeah, for me, I very much, emotionally loved the episode in terms of what they made me do in terms of sucking me in and making me ride the roller coaster. Having not watched Veronica Mars, having no idea how good the dialogue and the characters could be set up here, I thought it was a great payoff, from the show that for me was very much the quirky brain of the week early on, the first few episodes where you literally could take it or leave it. You could almost watch them in any order, and then eventually building this mythos and getting me sucked into these characters and caring about them, and Ravi with Peyton and her not around, and everything that Liv had to go through, especially in this episode. Some plot items moved a little fast, and I probably need to do a more detailed watch of the episode to get them all together. But it was just the gut punches that I just really appreciated what they were doing. As you both said, setting up season 2 with the Max Rager side of it, them thinking that their drink is what caused zombies. So that guy thinking he's got a plan to take out the zombies because they're collateral damage to their big plan for new Max, whatever it is, their new drink. The Brian Markinson scientist coming in to help with that. And as you pointed out, that great scene of him just staring at her and the great dialogue. Hey, this isn't a recorded sex show or something. I'm right here. Don't stare at me. Good stuff. The police chief side, my only thought on that was, I think we've seen in some of the other episodes when he's had to cover things up, or even that episode where he got shot after taking down those people that had someone hostage. I just think he was uncomfortable and unhappy being the zombie and all, and he saw this as a way to try to cover it up and take himself out of the equation. So that's where I kind of read that one. But the idea of being able to turn Blaine human, to keep him around. David Andrews is wonderful as an actor, and that character could do a lot. But now it's radically, as you said, Brent, we've shifted what the focus might be. But yeah, for Liv, just having to deal with all that. I get what you say, Wendy, as far as the brother bit maybe being a bit one too many gut punches or closing items. But to me, it was that whole thing with Major, turning him into one, realizing that he wasn't happy with that, trying to turn him back by giving up the cure for herself, another loss on her part, and then having to draw the line with her brother. Hey, we need, your blood to save him, and that's going to mean she'd be turning him into a zombie, and there's no way she was going to do it, so she had to draw the line. So for the character, you're just really empathetic for her.
Yeah, it's kind of getting whiplash, though. It was a little bit too much. You guys both mentioned the actor from Continuum. I definitely perked up when I saw him, and he's playing a very different character, so he was awesome, and I hope we do see a lot more of him. Brent, you were talking about the chief. The one thing, if I remember, is he the one who wrote Blaine's name in blood on the wall that Clive sees? I'm trying to remember who wrote that.
I think he did.
Was it him?
Either that or might have been Major. I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember who did it. The one thing I would have rather had is Peyton, because I left this episode. That was the big cliffhanger in the week before. It's barely mentioned in the start, very throwaway, and we never see her. And that really felt like a ball they dropped.
Yeah.
From what I've read, though, I think that was more one of those business side things. Apparently, the actress had a pilot that she was going for another show, so they very much had to leave her in the wind, so to speak, because they don't know if she's going to be able to come back. So I think the business side of TV might have driven what they had to do story-wise.
Yeah.
That would be
I still
horrible.
don't like it.
I didn't say I liked it. It's not like, I just didn't want folks thinking it didn't, why would you do that? And again, I think from what I read, one of the Rob Thomas interviews, they kind of found themselves kind of limited in what they could do.
Well, hopefully they'll at least leave her a voicemail message or something back to Ravi and Liv, because that's pretty bad the way they left them hanging.
Yep, understood. All right, and we also wanted to make sure to talk about the return of Defiance, first 2 episodes of Season 3, and Brent is going to start that discussion.
Yeah, the showrunner said that Season 3 would be a broader scope outside of Defiance, and he kind of lived up to his promise so far in the first two episodes. Remember, Season 4, if we get there, is going to be space-based, he said, so I'm looking forward to that too. And they're kind of setting that up with a new race coming in and having their giant spaceship, and Nolan even asking him, he said, you have a spaceship and it works? You know, they're kind of setting up maybe that that's one of the ways that they're going to get out into space next season. But oh my God, Defiance went dark, and I did not think it would do this, especially so quickly. You know, we had the kids on the run with well, they were kidnapped. Actually, Christy and Alec were kidnapped by Christy's mother. And apparently it's 7 months later, so Nolan and Arissa have been in this stasis the entire time that the show has been off the air, so we get this real-time gap. And, of course, Christy's had her baby, and we get this great scene where now that the Earth Republic, the EREP, is gone, thanks to to Arissa's actions, or not thanks to, but because of Arissa's actions, or not her actions, okay, her possessed actions by the machine, as Nolan would point out. The collective is now on the rampage. They're no longer being held in check by the EREP, and they're sweeping through the landscape with their objective of, at least their general leader's objective of killing all the humans. And they're heading to Defiance. And in the process, they run across Christy and well, they don't find Alec and Christy's mother, but they come across Christy, definitely, and Christy's brother. And they immediately, with his father watching, execute with coldness Christy's brother, and then of course the father manages to escape with the help of Datac, and there's a scene where he's trying to save his daughter and grandchild, and ends up getting killed. And I thought, okay, when that happened, that's kind of fitting for Rafe. I can understand that, sacrificing himself like that, going out in a blaze of glory, trying to save his family, just kind of makes sense for Rafe. But then we get that scene where Stama is given a knife and told to kill Christy, and then she sees the baby, she sees her grandchild, Christy's child, and she makes a swing for Christy's neck, and Christy screams and falls, and I'm thinking, okay, she did something else. She cut her somewhere where it wouldn't kill her. It's a fake. It's not real. She's just playing dead. But then we get Christy's mother coming in with Alec, and they're grieving over the two of them. And of course, then I got a little more reassurance when it turned out Rafe wasn't really dead or totally dead yet. He had a little breath of life still in him, and they didn't determine that. So I figured, well, maybe they don't know that Christy's not really dead. But it really looks like she's dead. And of course, the fact they didn't take the heads, which they were doing for trophies, made me think, oh, she's not really dead. But I'm thinking she's really dead. And that really bums me because I like the character a lot. So it was really cold and dark. And of course, later on, we get the darkness of Doc Yule, who they need some of the skin from Doc or from one of her race, and she's the one handy, to heal the daughter of the new blue or purple alien or whatever they are. And the scene where they realize that they have no choice but to force, Doc to give up the skin, and they all the ones there, Amanda and Nolan and Arissa, all and Berlin, all just basically team up to grab her and hold her down and cut a big slice of skin off of her, dark and very violating of her as well, but they managed to heal the daughter. And of course, the daughter and the father of this new race, we see the ship is filled with thousands potentially or more of their race, and they're going to wake them up, and they're going to kill all the other aliens, and feast on them. So this show has gone dark and epic in very short order. I did not expect this. I was very pleasantly surprised, and that's why I gave it a watch it now. It just blew me away.
Yeah, Defiance has been a show that I've liked. At times I've loved, but overall it hasn't really been as high on my list as I know it is for you, Brent, and for some other folks. But after these 2 episodes, just wow. As you said, the darkness, not just the darkness, but how much it fit the story. As we all know, sometimes we see character deaths done just for shock value. or just to start paring down a cast, but this here just fit the story of what's going on and the epic nature of the problems everybody in the town or near it is dealing with now, right down to that new race that showed up as you described, and that we see at the very end has got an entire army of other members of the race kind of like in stasis or something, and then these people are seen as the devils because of their ability to kill and so forth. I mean, this is going to be dangerous and dark and, might now finally move even higher on my anticipation list because it was a 2-hour episode, or it was 2 1-hour episodes, but this thing was over in the blink of an eye for me, very much unlike some other Defiant stuff where I've kind of, been a little losing interest as certain scenes moved around. Not here. They certainly came back in a great way, getting everybody involved and really making the stakes higher and making me really feel for them in terms of what they're dealing with now. So, really well done.
Yeah, I like the introduction of these bigger threats. Defiance has always tried to be sort of this Wild West sort of atmosphere, and I think they've raised the stakes appropriately for what that means. So I like that a lot. I'm very sad that Rafe is gone because it's a great character. So, certainly dying to save your family is a good way to go, but I'm still disappointed because I really like that actor. So yeah, I agree. I think it started off with a bang and it set up these big problems about, these resources, this big bad they've introduced, whose name I've already forgotten, begins with a T, right? Ram Tak, is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, when I was watching this, I had to keep checking myself and asking myself if I was watching HBO and this was Game of Thrones with all the darkness and death going on.
Well, I'm guessing that they took a cue from that and said, well, it's okay to up the stakes.
I like it.
Yeah, and they did big time. So I'm hoping they can maintain this because this was a great way to start the season.
And hopefully they'll go beyond just killing people, but we'll actually see sort of an intergalactic war come or something.
Nudity and sex? Oh, wait, no, this is sci-fi.
Yeah, that's still held for HBO and Game of Thrones.
I don't know. Stama doesn't wear that many clothes now.
That's a good point.
I'd like to see some equivalent male nudity on the show.
Time will tell. All right, well, speaking of time, we've run out of it here for our regular show this week, folks. Chock full of good stuff, and we've got several more shows to talk about this week's last call, including some sci-fi media calls for a couple of shows we've been touching on, so lots more goodness coming later in the week. But thanks very much for tuning in and listening. We appreciate it. It's been great, again, as always, talking to Brent and Wendy. We have a blast, so we hope you folks all take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Catch you next time.
We love to get your feedback. Call us at 206-202-4182 or leave us a Skype voicemail to our Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV name. We have many ways to keep the discussion going on our blog. Drop by tuningintoscifitv.com and leave a comment. On the blog, you'll also find links to the forum discussions and other links to follow our Twitter and RSS feeds and find our Facebook account.
Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV was hosted by Kevin Batchelder, Wendy Hembrock, and Brent Barrett. The theme music for Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV is by Beatnik Turtle. Used with permission. Listen to Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV on Stitcher Radio on Demand. Download the free app today at Stitcher.com. You've been listening to Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV, episode 341, recorded June 13th, 2015.